you could spend all day prehabbing every potential injury, or you could just react to when you're sore. Personally, I think the time saving of just reacting to when you're sore and getting generally warm for your movement prep is good to go. So, who knows side plank clamshells? Come demonstrate.
I don't do them well though, so I shouldn't be.
Okay. All right, so we're gonna go onto our sides. You're gonna go down to your elbow. Hand is coming up on the top hip. And we're in like a little spoon position. Okay, from here, you're gonna shoot your hips into the air and you're gonna spread your knees apart at the same time, okay? The goal here is having that bottom knee drive into the ground, and that's what raises your hips. We're gonna go 20 of these guys on each side, okay? 2-0 on each side. Drive that bottom knee hard into the ground. Feel that bottom glute doing the majority of the work. Now, if we're doing this really well, we're also thinking about our breathing and our bracing on every single rep. Yeah, remember, neural control, you need to do that as much as possible to be able to ingrain that over time.
Now, are the feet together at the bottom?
Yes. Yeah, feet together, splay the knees apart. Once you've done 20, swap over to the other side. Okay, the next one is going to be bird dogs. But one of the biggest issues when we warm up is the same issue we have when we rehab, in that we take the most basic movement of all time and then we try to go to our maximum work capacity. So like for everyone in this room, like just doing these guys, we're probably just sort of pissing in the wind. Yeah, it's not gonna do a whole lot. Okay, so let's take that same position. We're gonna hover our knees off the ground by an inch. We're gonna do the same thing with your breathing and bracing. What that should look like is we're here, big breath. Okay? Notice you should actually be doing something. Yeah? It should actually feel like effort. It should actually feel like work. If your first 10, 20, 30 minutes in the gym is just sort of mucking about of stuff that doesn't require any effort, it's probably more of a waste of time than you think. Okay? Let's go onto all fours, hover those knees off the ground, harder than you think. Okay? Now the closer your knees are to the ground, the more you're gonna get from this exercise. And again, we're gonna count at 20. If you flat out can't do it, just do it with your feet. Keep both hands down on the ground. Okay, now, note that we're talking about warm up for a yoke, deadlift, sandbag. Okay? In terms of those two, the noises coming from you right now are what you should get to before doing those. Now, when we do yoke, deadlift, sandbag, what do we not need to warm up a whole lot? Yeah, anything overhead, right? We're never existing up here, so if we're just practicing these guys, don't stress out about it, okay? Now, let's just throw out some common injuries, some common feelings of discomfort that we have and talk about how to deal with those, how to warm up with those, if we're dealing with those right now. Does anyone want to give me? Surely people have something going on. Shoulder?
Yeah, like most people, when we're coaching classes, they're like, oh, my shoulders are so messed up. Like karate chops or something.
Okay, shoulders. Shoulder blades are, with shoulder pain, getting shoulder blades moving well is going to be the key. I'm going to say 95% of the time. Shoulder blades need to be able to protract and upwardly rotate in order to overhead press well. So I would, for any of those people, I would start by priming a protraction movement, say just like a band behind their back, reach and cave the chest, and then I would prime an upward rotation movement, say like a booty band around the elbows, or around the wrists, keep the elbows tucked in and drive up overhead. Also cueing, shrugging the ears to the shoulders every time the ears pass the shoulder, every time the elbows pass the shoulders is very useful, okay? We're here, and then we're up. Okay? Shoulders down when it comes to overhead pressing is a total fallacy. If you look at gymnasts, you look at Olympic lifters, you look at strongmen, all of us, our shoulders up to create stability because you need that upward rotation. Okay? So 9 times out of 10, when it comes to movement-related deficit at the shoulder, it's one of those two things not operating well, meaning that we're setting the shoulder complex up poorly, and now the subacromial bursa, rotating cuff tendons, all that are sensitive. Yeah? So huge broad strokes, that would be my shoulders. What else do we have? Probably.
Like my whole lower body clicks like all the time. And, like it's more the feeling it than the hearing it that is like worrying, you know?
Yeah, when you say your whole lower body clicks, can you be more specific? Are you talking about your hips?
Yeah.
You go into extension?
Hips, knees, ankles, everything, like all three. So.
Okay. The clicks in the hips are one of your tendons that just goes over a part of bone. Really not a problem. The clicking in your knees and ankles is just popping crepitus. It sort of is what it is. I think we're either hips or knees. What do you think? What do you see most often?
Hips, probably.
Hips? Good. So with our hips, they're the opposite of the knee where they have the most degrees of freedom outside of our shoulders, and there's a lot of different movements they can do. Generally speaking, discomfort deep in the hips is coming from an over demand of the end space when it comes to the femur running out of room in the hip socket. So I would say one of the most important things is finding out where exactly your hip sockets are pointed. And when you find out where your hip sockets are pointed, make sure you cater your movement to that. Because if you have hip sockets that are pointed out to the side and you often are trying to go out in front of you, that's just going to cause inflammation in your hips over the long run. That would be my number one go-to. In terms of warming up, it would be an awareness of where those movements are. Do you want to go? Why don't we go over that? 2 seconds. Who's a volunteer? Who wants to find out about their hips? Yeah, you're first up. Lie down. Good. Energy. Love it. Okay, so with anyone in this position, there's no skill to doing this. It's very, very simple. If you internally rotate the leg and you push it up to the chest, at some stage you're going to get that pinching. Yep. Yeah? A little bit. Okay. So then we want to play with, okay, well, when we come out of internal rotation and we bring that knee out to the side, how much more range do we get? So you can see here, her knee is done. If I push, her hips are coming off the ground. And if I keep light pressure, you can see that up here, right about there, you become completely free. Yeah. Okay? So that is going to be where your hip socket operates. Now, for me, if you do the same thing for me, you'd need to take me out here for me to be able to do the same thing.
Your hip socket's pointing that way?
Correct.
Okay.
And you see that for you, if we go from here to here, your knee starts coming back down.
Yep.
So all we're doing is taking the head of your femur and scraping it along the top of your hip socket. Okay? So for you, your movement needs to feel like this.
It does.
Okay?
My squat or whatever.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. It has to, and for people who don't understand that, they're gonna often, no problem. They're gonna often be trying to operate in a way that they've seen the coach or Rich Froning or fucking Tia Toomey or whatever, see how they squat. And they're like, okay, me too, I guess. Yeah. Traditionally speaking, close in and forward is going to be pinching, feeling deep in the front of the hips, and out wide is going to feel like almost a tear way deep on the inside of the groin. Those are your 2 cardinal sins. Yeah? Cardinal signs, I should say. Okay? Otherwise, we can look at internal and external rotation of the femurs. One really good simple test is if you're here and you relax down, what's that space like? And what's this space like in terms of external rotation of the femurs? In terms of internal rotation of the femurs, if you go from a glute bridge position and you go over to one side and you go over to the other, you can generally feel when you're losing degrees of freedom in your hip on one side or the other. Yeah? Lots of little details around that. Probably a whole separate conversation around squatting. If you squat and shift to one side, it's either because you can't open one side or internal rotation is limited on the other, but probably too much to digest for today. Okay, let's do one more set of side plank clamshells on each side, one more set of bird dogs, and then we're gonna get into movement.